Welcome in everyone, James here. Now you might have heard the term hero class being thrown around and you're trying to work out which one is best for you, or maybe even what the point of committing yourself to a single hero class is. In this series of videos I'm going to be putting all 5 hero classes through their paces, explain what every hero class plays like as you start nearing that end game stage, and show you what exactly it is you're aiming for. Before we begin, I'm going to explain a lot of stuff, so this intro will be a bit of a guide unto itself, and just as a heads up, I'm going to paste it into all of the videos in this series. Now, first things first, the reason we recommend you focus on just the one hero class is because you can get charms to boost all 5 of the hero classes. And the best way to utilize those charms is to stack as many of one single type as possible into your armor. Mixing different types of hero charms into one set of armor just gives you bad results across the board, and it's not even worth doing. Secondly, by focusing on one single hero class as early as possible, you can save yourself a ton of time and effort because you're not going to run out of tomes from leveling up all the random heroes that you unlock, and you can stick to just the ones that are in your selected hero class and still be able to cover pretty much everything the game has to offer. Now, don't get me wrong, all of the 5 hero classes are viable, but each have different strengths and weaknesses across different areas of the game. I'll be using the same build across all 5 classes because the fundamentals don't change much. This is the build, it's 375% hero power. Obviously I will change which charms are in there depending on which class I'm talking about. On the body piece there, I have 4 defense charms and 1 weakened chance. That one is essential in my opinion. And then on the helmet, I've got 4 more defense charms. This one is a unique helmet because my mythic one is set up for the monster caves and it's a little bit jank at the minute. The gauntlets you use will change depending on what class you're using, and to some extent the weapons do change as well. They can change, but normally I'd recommend having 100% protect on your main rift weapon regardless. Now, when selecting a hero class, the most important thing you need to do is identify the weakened hero for that class, because when you're starting out in this game, weaken and protect is the most important tactic you need to learn. So here's how it works, and I apologize if you already know this, but what you do is you get a hero with weaken on rage, and then when you rage that hero, you will hopefully apply weaken to all of the enemies. Weaken will lower their damage by 35%. Then if you apply protect to yourself, either with a weapon that has 100% chance to proc protect, or a hero with protect on their base power, protect will lower all damage to you by another 35%. So when these 2 statuses are in effect, that's 70% damage negation. And then you can take it even further. If you attune your mythic armor, you get 10% damage negation per attunement from whatever enemy type it is attuned to. So the trick is you attune 3 pieces to the same type. I'm going to use beast for this example. You use weaken and protect, and now you have 100% damage negation. So when they hit you, just nothing will happen. You won't take any damage. Now you've got 5 pieces of mythic armor, and you can attune all 5 of them. So you can attune 3 to one type and 2 to another type and achieve 100% from one enemy type and 90% from a second, which is why this works so well, because most fights will only have 2 enemy types at a time. You can see me using this strategy to full effect in the Achilles Cave videos, which is pretty much the hardest fight in the game right now. But more to this point, one of the most common misconceptions in this game is that you need to keep your armor leveled up all the time. You don't. You just simply don't have to. What you need to do is keep your weakened hero leveled up all the time, because if their level is too low, the weaken just won't work. So always try to keep them the same level as you. You're not going to need your armor leveled up if you're not taking any damage to begin with. And all this is usually realized way too late in the game, which is a problem, because this type of game, if you set off on the wrong path, it can be faster in the moment, but it will cost you months of progression further down the line, and it's full of all these little pitfalls that the game just sets you up for, so that you can feel overpowered 1 minute and then you hit a wall and then you need to start again. Do you like to use stun or freeze in the rift? guess what? It doesn't work in Expert Rift. As soon as the threat gets to about 20 to 40 points above your rift power, it just stops working. And this is just one of the little pitfalls that the game sets you up for. There is so many. Now the Expert Rift starts at 280 threat. So when you get started in there, you're going to be in a threat deficit most of the time, and getting more rift power is a lot easier said than done, because that's another pitfall. You need to save all of the currency for the monster cave shops to buy the upgrade stones, to upgrade all the gear to get more rift power, and it's such a huge grind. So having said that, the PvE ratings I give for each class will all be based on the Expert Rift, because not only is it hard, it's the most important area of the game that you should be playing each week to keep your progression going. You get all the upgrade materials to go from level 50 to 60 for your armor and your weapons, and you get pretty much everything else you can think of in there: charms, mythic essence, gear, gauntlet cores. You get so many gauntlet cores. One thing to note in the Expert Rift is that the rift power and the threat, the numbers, they don't actually matter. It's the difference between the numbers that matters. And at about 170 threat deficit, so that's when the threat is above your rift power, the enemies are going to cap out and they're not going to get any stronger. So if you can reliably win at 170 threat deficit, you can beat anything. But I will say that's not going to happen if you're using Vordry and Brutus. It's just not. And the Rift is the only area in the game where you actually need your mythic armor. When you start reaching end game, you can put together alternate sets of unique armor like this. These are called side builds, and you can use them for every aspect of the game except the Rift, because they can't gain any Rift power. So choosing a starting class that might make the Rift more difficult is potentially shooting yourself in the foot. So I'm going to be demonstrating how to play Expert Rift in quite a heavy deficit for each class, and I'm going to show you how to play it best. Now for the guild boss high scores, you need heroes with strong distributed rage powers. The rule of rage powers is if it has any added special effects, the damage will be lower. So the best ones for high scores are the ones that have just pure damage and don't really do anything. They don't have expose, or they don't have poison or whatever. If it just doesn't do anything and it's just pure damage like critter or bacon, then that's as high as the numbers are gonna go. The only way that the numbers get higher than that is on heroes like Balendu, where it's just pure damage. But then it also says strong versus burn. It gets a buff to it as well if the enemy has burn. And this is the only place in the game where the strong versus types of the heroes actually matter. Because for guild bosses, you really do need to min-max as much as possible to get those high scores. In all the other areas of the game, you should really be choosing your heroes based on what they do, rather than their strong versus type. And finally, in the arena in endgame, you're ideally looking for setups that can kill reliably on turn 2, because in most cases trying to get to turn 3 will get you killed. However, there is a little trick you can use if you equip a level 1 weapon and keep your damage low. You can trick the enemy AI into thinking that you're weaker than you are, and it will go easier on you, giving you the most chance of making it into turn 3 or even turn 4 in some cases, because there's just some builds where it's not viable to get consistent turn 2 wins. So you're going to need those extra actions, and I'm going to demonstrate turn 3 wins with some of these builds. Usually, if anything goes past turn 2, I will be using a level 1 weapon. That is why. And that is it for this massive intro, so let's get into it. So first of all, we've got the Hunter class. You're going to need the Logician Gauntlet and a weapon with 100% protect chance for this class. You don't tend to use the Maverick Gauntlet too often with this class, so you could go with a bit of a hybrid like this one, just as long as it has protect on it to give you that survivability. Now, accessibility. The weakened hero of a hunter is Lanasa, and she needs to be max stars to unlock her weaken ability. You can substitute her for Caliban, who weakens the back row with his base power, but that's not ideal, and it adds a whole different layer of complexity to using this class. So for that reason, I wouldn't recommend this one to newer players, and I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 for accessibility. Next, PvP, the arena. I'll show you 2 solid builds. The first one is a turn 3 build, which isn't ideal, but it works. You need a level 1 weapon, Logician Gauntlet, Caliban and Mika. Your goal here is to survive to turn 3. The level 1 weapon can help fool the enemy AI into thinking you weak and give you the most chance of surviving long enough to pull this one off. And the first 2 turns, all you do is try and soften up the minions a bit, punch them a couple of times, lower their health a little bit. Then on turn 3 you use Caliban's base power to finish off the minions, Mika base to apply poison, and Rage Mika to get the kill. It does work more often than not. This is doing a lot of damage direct to health. The second build I've got for you is quite possibly one of the best in the game. It's certainly one of my favourite ones. It is the Grizz build, and there's a couple of ways you can set this one up. My favourite is with Victor. So you take Victor and Grizz, a level 1 weapon with 100% Fury chance, and the Rebel Gauntlet. Now Grizz's rage is damage to all, so you don't need to touch the minions, and this is still a turn 2 build, which is exceptionally rare because most of the turn 2 builds you need a damage weapon and you need to take out those minions. You don't have to with this, it's so much simpler. And what you do is you swing and then punch on the right hand side minion. That's going to proc Fury from the weapon and protect from the gauntlet. Don't ask me why, it just works when you do this, and that's going to give you a ton of rage gen on the Rebel Gauntlet. Then on turn 2 you just swing on the knight twice, and if protect did work, which it probably will have done, your rage will be full and Victor will be charged. If protect doesn't work for whatever reason, you swing once, stop the chain, and then swing again to proc Fury twice, and that will fill your rage up. Then you use Victor base to hopefully apply expose. It does a little bit of direct to health damage as well, which just helps things along. You Grizz rage and you're done. The chances are they're gonna die from that. If they don't, you have the level 1 weapon, so you have the most chance of surviving long enough to try another rage, and surprisingly that does work a lot of the time. If the first rage fails, you survive long enough to try another one. Exposed chance on your armor helps this one along quite a bit. Because Victor is blue, his chance to expose is not as high as some of the other heroes. And if you don't have Fury charms in a level 1 weapon, you can switch Victor for critter and the Rebel Gauntlet for the Valiant Gauntlet. I just find the Victor variation to be better for whatever reason. I find it works better. But all you do if you have critter and the Valiant is any level 1 weapon, it doesn't matter, and you just swing it 4 times, critter base for your rage gen and expose chance, and then rage Grizz. And if you haven't yet, even if you don't play Hunter, I would recommend making a side build just to try this one out, because it's a joy to use. You don't even have to think about it, and it is so fast. To be perfectly honest, even if you die when you're using this setup, you won't even care. And on the strength of the Grizz build, Hunter class is getting full marks, 5 out of 5 for the arena. Now for PvE, the Rift, every class has a staple combo which you use all the time, and then a couple of heroes that you switch in and out. The staple set for Hunter is Freya, Lanasa, and the Logician Gauntlet. And this covers all the bases pretty well. Situationally is quite handy as well. Like when there's a ton of the acid goblins and they all stack acid on you in one turn, Freya base just cleanses it and it's a non-issue, which compared to the other classes is just fantastic. You find yourself having to dodge that acid quite a bit with the other classes, and just being able to cleanse it away while gaining rage at the same time is so nice to have. And then you have McLeod, Istara and Caliban, which you will sub in situationally. McLeod rage delays all of the enemies, so he's good for bosses like Time Lost or the big demon dude, and you need him because Hunter doesn't have a base power delay hero. Istara offers damage. A freeze just doesn't work in a threat deficit, but bosses like Ravager and Deceiver, she will just one-shot them most of the time. And if you've played the other classes, you'll probably know how annoying these undead Rift bosses can be. So it is really satisfying when you just walk up and one-shot them with Istara's base power. And then Caliban, not as good as Lanasa for the weaken, but I usually use him if I bring McLeod or Istara. So if I switch out Freya and Lanasa, I switch them both out, because that gives you a little bit more synergy. Because if you switch out either Lanasa or Freya, you either lose your heals or you lose your weaken. Caliban's got heals on rage and he's got weaken on base, so he does a little bit of both, and that's why he's ideal when you are switching out Freya or Lanasa. But when you do that, having weaken strictly to the back row adds in a whole different layer of difficulty, and it makes using this class way more complicated than it should be. Now the problems come from heals and damage. With Lanasa and Freya, you just don't have either. Freya's heals are so low that even with 15 unique hero charms, it's practically unnoticeable that you are getting a heal. And Lanasa rage damage feels incredibly low as well. So while this combo covers most of the normal fights, you will be swapping and switching for bosses a lot more than the other classes. And even though the Logician Gauntlet is fantastic, it has a surprising amount of synergy issues with the Hunter heroes. You need powers that cause a status to generate rage. Lanasa rage does, but her base doesn't. Caliban's base does, but his rage doesn't. Istara's rage does, but her base doesn't, and McLeod's base does, but his rage doesn't. And I understand that probably just sounded like a lot of words, but when you're using this class, you find yourself trying to overthink everything, and trying to plan ahead for the next turn is just a massive headache. Way too much mental gymnastics when you're trying to get this class to actually work for you, and for those reasons, Hunter is getting a 3 out of 5 for PvE. It gets by, but it's just unnecessarily complicated. And finally, guild boss scores. Hunter class just can't do them. Next. No, but seriously, Hunter class has 2 distribute rage heroes, and they are Delphinia for the undead and Freya for Golem. Delphinia is blue, so the damage is inherently low to start with, and it has delay, so it's even lower still. You'll do better with an alchemist side build and bacon on the undead bosses. And it's the same story for Freya. Her rage is strong versus protect, focus and fury, but if the enemy doesn't have these buffs, the damage is low. So you'd be better off with Balendo and a mage side build for the golem bosses. And that's it. You can do okay, but it's just so easily outclassed. So it's a 2 out of 5 for guild boss scores. And to close this section, Hunter is a somewhat niche class. It does okay, it gets by in the main areas of the game, it's just far from the best. The best thing about this class is Grizz, and to be perfectly honest, that can be emulated with a side build. So I'm giving Hunter a 3 out of 5 overall. PvP just isn't enough to warrant putting it on your mythic armor, in my opinion. But if you do have Lanasa max stars, you can absolutely get by with this. There's a lot of personal preference that's going to go into it here, but I wouldn't be recommending this to newer players who don't really understand the concepts just yet, which is kind of the point of these videos and why the intro was so long. But next up is the Alchemist class. I've already switched to it, I've already killed Achilles, and I'm working on a bunch of videos at the minute, but I will be doing one of these for the Alchemist class. But that is it from me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have been James B09. Good luck out there. If you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to get some free stuff, because free stuff is always good stuff. If you go to the campfire screen, you see a button that says social. If you click on that, you find links to all of the communities there, and a button that says Night Hub. If you press Night Hub, it will open your browser, log you in automatically. Then you can navigate to the web store. In the web store, you will find free chests, and when you claim anything from the web store, it goes directly into your inbox in game. Now, if you do want to spend some money, you can find event passes that come with bonus points or gems, for example, but that really is it from me today. Have a good one. Enjoy.